Hello everyone and welcome back to Versus, the show that takes art and makes it competitive, or in the case of today, it's making the creators of the art itself engage in career combat. That's because we have a trio of talented Tinseltown talkie technicians on hand. It's James Gunn taking on Edgar Wright versus Taika Waititi in a winner-take-all event. And although the winner won't actually be taking anything physically home, because in all likelihood they're not going to show up in the studio today, any of them get back to us?
Can I get back to you on that?
It's a swing and a miss. It should still be a wholly entertaining matchup that will span the entirety of these folks' careers and feature every galaxy, planet, and pub in the known universe.
I don't think I can do this.
Was? Of course you can.
In one corner, it's James Gunn, he of Guardians of the Galaxy fame, who's also made films about everything from slithery creatures to foul-mouthed anti-heroes.
We're gonna need to have a real discussion about your language.
In the next corner is Edgar Wright, he of the Cornetto Trilogy acclaim, who's also made films about everything from driving babies to evil ex-boyfriends.
Did you make some of those up?
And I'm now being told in my ear that Baby Driver is actually adults driving the car, and I'll research that fact later. In the final corner, it's Taika Waititi,
At your surface.
helmer of Thor, Love and Thunder, who's also showcased everything from fourth wall breaking vampires
That's us.
to the natural environment of the wilderpeople. 3 heralded helmers, but only one will emerge victorious in this pit of destiny that makes Thor Ragnarok look like a sandbox at a fast food playland.
Well, you're right.
Here's how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Round 3, characters. Round 4, iconic moments. And then we'll do a wildcard round that could involve anything from how many talking animals do you have, to how many zombies have your characters battled, to how many times have you killed off Michael Rooker. We love Michael Rooker. What did he ever do to you? Okay, he was a little uptight in Mallrats, and he took some time to become likable in Days of Thunder, but other than that, stand up, A-class jet.
How's about a big hug for your old pal Merle?
Oh, right, Walking Dead. Yeah, and then maybe like 10 or 12 or 30 other roles. Besides those, we'd love to hang out with Michael Rooker. You are always welcome in this studio, for it is a safe space.
I'm suddenly not feeling too well.
Today, however, we have 3 of the most influential filmmakers of this millennium duking it out for a win on Versus. I'm your host, jury, judge, and Judy Mark Ellis.
You think you're so cool, don't you?
And as I'm fond of saying, let's get it on.
Prepare to die, obviously.
Look, I've had it today. Can we not do this right now?
Round 1, box office. Movie theaters. We love showing up in droves to the local multiplex, the dollar theater, the drive-in, all with one singular intention: to cram as much popcorn into our gullet as we can while still following the dazzling action, electrifying intensity, and laughing at every hysterical moment. Sorry to whoever's neck I coughed popcorn on, but that's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They're just so funny together.
What's that supposed to mean?
One might surmise that James Gunn and or Taika Waititi would have the edge in this round, not because we like them the most, but they're each helming their own franchises within the vast expanse known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or as I call it, the MC Universe.
What?
But let's not throw a pity party for Edgar Wright just yet. After all, he was the original director of Ant-Man, and there's a reason for that. The guy's made some pretty popular movies before and since he parted ways with those Avenger types. In fact, 'twas Edgar who directed the highest-grossing non-superhero movie of anyone in competition today. Baby Driver, which does have a heroic soundtrack, crushed at the BO to the tune of $227 million worldwide.
Wow.
He also made nice chunks of change with flicks like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, all of which hauled in at least $40 million each.
Well, aren't you pleased as punch?
And the film that put him on the map, Shaun of the Dead, grossed $29 million on a minuscule budget. All told, Edgar Wright movies have earned a combined $457 million across the earth, making for an applaudable $76 million per outing. Those numbers are worth much more than just a golf clap, but his foes today did say yes to Marvel, and that could give them a sizable advantage, like Thor's bicep-size upper hand. Taika Waititi is up next, and while we're still tallying the dizzying heights of his latest MCU entry, Thor Love and Thunder, it's expected to keep pace with Thor Ragnarok, which did a mind-blowing $850 million just here on Earth. That's not counting all the Asgardian coin it raked in. Jojo Rabbit was also a hit for Taika, as it took in 86 million bones.
Obviously.
And I'll give a shout out to Boy and Hunt for the Wilderpeople, because although they only team up for just over $30 million, they're what proved that Waititi could tell a story in any galaxy. And like Edgar Wright, his earlier films had a total budget of like, I don't know, $4 and a couple SD cards. Those numbers aren't exact, but here's some that are. Taika has a pretty solid average thanks to The God of Thunder. He's averaging $196 million per movie for a grand total that is currently just south of $1 billion, but one that could inflate to over $2 billion once my accountant sees Thor: Love and Thunder and what it has to offer.
Yay us. Pat on the back. Pat on the back.
So now we turn our lonely eyes to James Gunn, who's been making movies since 1996's Romeo and Juliet. If you missed that one at the box office, don't worry. Do you remember 2006? Yeah, that year saw Slither creep its way to a respectable $12 million. Then movie 43 did 30 mil. Wait, what? He was part of the. Oh no. That movie 43?
Uh-huh.
All right, let's not focus on what's dangling from Wolverine's chin and instead focus on Guardians of the Galaxy. The two volumes have teamed up to generate over $1.5 billion in box office receipts, and The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, grabbed another $167 million worldwide. And even though James Gunn has Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 on the way right now, he won't even need it to feel comfy here in round one. His home video library made over $1.8 billion when it was released in theaters, and that makes for a per-movie average of $370 million. It was a good round for Edgar and a great round for Taika, but James Gunn comes out on top in the box office round and takes the early lead, 1-0 to nothing.
That's the first thing you said that wasn't bad crazy.
Round 2, Tomatometer/audience score. The good news for James Gunn is that he's got momentum heading into this round, and that was partially helped by the $30 million earned by movie 43. But the bad news is that movie 43 also counts in the Tomatometer round, where I don't think critics are going to take all that kindly to it. But let's be fair, James Gunn didn't direct the whole thing. There were tons of talented folks that contributed behind the camera to that weird, awful sketch show of a movie. So let's also toss Bob Odenkirk, Elizabeth Banks, Peter Farrelly, and 39 other folks into that fray. So we're not going to penalize Jimmy for it too hard, but it is at 4% on the Tomatometer. The good news is that nothing else he's directed has come close to that level of stinkiness. He actually only has one other rotten film on the old ography, and that's 49% courtesy of Super, which I liked. From there, it's all fresh town as Guardians of the Galaxy, The Suicide Squad, and its streaming offshoot Peacemaker are all at least 90% fresh. Adding to the potpourri is Slither's 87% and Guardians Volume 2's 85%. We just can't get enough of that adorable tree and its buddy, the wisecracking raccoon.
Don't call me a raccoon!
Or the sweet rabbit, if you believe Thor in Avengers Infinity War. That's as smooth a transition as I'm going to make to Taika Waititi, who's so prolific in television, I can kick off with those digits. What We Do in the Shadows is 97% as a TV program and 96% as a film.
Screw this, I'm flying. Who's with me?
He doesn't have the address, so, you know.
I don't have the address.
Ooh, and have y'all seen Reservation Dogs? It's great. Waititi created it. That's at 98%, and he also directed episodes of Flight of the Conchords, which is sitting at 94% for its entire run. All right, now let's get to the big screen and one of the biggest heroes of them all.
Hang on. I'll be back around shortly.
Thor Ragnarok is at 93%, and Hunt for the Wilderpeople is at 97%. This guy's on fire.
This got real!
Boy is at 88%, and Eagle vs. Shark is at 56% on the Tomatometer, but rebounds into fresh territory with a 67% audience score. It's getting competitive here in round 2, and now it's Edgar Wright's turn to show off.
Yeah, boy!
Baby Driver wasn't just a box office sensation, it also scored big with the critics, notching 92%, which ties it with Shaun of the Dead. The Fuzz is hot on the trail, as it earned 91% on the Tomatometer, and The World's End is 89%, which is well beyond the legal limit. With the Sparks Brothers landing at 96% and Last Night in Soho notching 76%, it seems like it'll be pretty close on the old math between all three of these talents. Lo and behold, each director is fresh across the board with both their Tomatometer and audience score averages. James Gunn is at 68% and 66% respectively, but since he just pinch hit for movie 43, I'm going to boost that up to 80% each.
Whoa. Who put you in charge, huh?
What? I'm the host. I have absolute power. Until the editors take over, in which they'll probably cut out when I rip my shirt off, revealing Thor-like abs in round 4.
Oh my god! Oh my god, I'm good at my job.
It's Thor and Endgame abs, but still, I'm still Thor.
You look like melted ice cream.
Edgar Wright is also in the 80s, setting the high bar for the Tomatometer with an impossible 88% average per project. Taika Waititi is close behind, as he has an 85% average. That's his exact same total for the audience score, bolstered by Jojo Rabbit at 94% and Our Flag Means Death at 95%. It's Wright who is nipping on Taika's heels by this measurement, as his audience score average is 83%, thanks to hits like Shaun of the Zombies at 93%, and Spaced, Edgar's 1999 TV show, at 97%. So it appears it's going to come down to Taika and Edgar. Edgar and Taika. Both are worthy champions in this round, but I'm going to have to side with the high bar setter for the almighty Tomatometer, Edgar Wright, for the W. Now, I didn't say the Tomatometer is infallible, however. It can be wrong. Luckily, there's a podcast about it. Hosted by... I'll let you guess.
Is there anywhere you don't work?
Edgar Wright sneaks out of round 2 with a win, and it's 1-1-0.
Okay, Debbie Downer, can we think of something more positive?
Round 3, characters. Usually one would easily grasp the notion that this round is all about the characters that feature in the movies made by the filmmakers currently battling it out on the show.
Metaphor. Sorta.
But on this particular day, I kind of feel the need to remind everyone of this fact, simply because the directors themselves are all such great personalities. Is there a better 3 amigos of fun, engaging shot callers than these 3 ballers? James Gunn, Edgar Wright, and Taika Waititi have obviously found their calling, but when they're interviewed about their projects, one could easily see them performing roles on their own in front of the camera, on the lighted stage, or just hanging out at the neighborhood watering hole. Taika is actually a character in a few of his films, and he's made quite the mark. From Vago the Vamp and What We Do in the Shadows to Korg the friendly rock guy from the Thor flicks, we love to laugh at him and cheer him on. Meanwhile, James Gunn films are often a family affair, as his talented actor sibling Sean Gunn frequently appears in his projects and is always memorable as a scene stealer. But we'll officially kick off this round with Edgar Wright, who found his muses in a pair of lovable chums named Simon and Nick.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Peg and Frost, to be exact. The duo is phenomenal in Shaun of the Dead, and from there we yearn to see them team up again and again. Luckily, we got our wish, as they completed Edgar's famed, loose Cornetto Trilogy with Hot Fuzz and The World's End. Edgar Wright was also able to utilize one iconic character, Scott Pilgrim, to open up a gateway for a seemingly endless amount of fun pop-ins.
Can I have your autograph, please?
Mostly from embattled ex-boyfriends.
Exes. Why do you keep saying that?
Similarly, Baby Driver is anything but a one-driver show. The chemistry between Baby and Deborah is fantabulous, but also rocking brightened are the appearances from vets like Jamie Foxx as Bass.
No need for intros, Doc. Everybody from the jungle to the trap, no Bass.
John Hamm as Buddy, and the new star on the block, Darling, played by Isaac Gonzalez. And yes, I'll also give credit to both Mike Myers and Michael Myers for being in Baby Driver, simply because the joke is that good.
It should be the Halloween mask.
This is a Halloween mask!
No, the killer dude from Halloween.
Oh, you mean Jason?
No!
For James Gunn, the characters he's most known for weren't created out of thin air by him, but now, as we look forward to many more Guardians of the Galaxy adventures, can you imagine anyone else breathing life into these creations? Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, Zoe Saldana as Gamora have had, past tense, such amazing chemistry, and Rocket Raccoon, with really anyone or anything next to him, is a laugh riot. It's almost unfair that Bradley Cooper is that hot of an actor, that talented of a director, and then also gets to play around in the voiceover booth to voice the wisecracking Great Outdoors brethren.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone!
Vin Diesel has a much easier time in said vocals department.
I am Groot!
Yet his role as Groot, or Baby Groot, or Teenage Groot, is always a highlight.
I am Groot.
Drax proves that big fellas can have impeccable comedic timing.
Hey, there's no need to get personal.
And when the gang gets together, it's some of the most fun you'll have in the MCU or any other universe.
We're all gonna die.
But Gunn has also jumped into the DC sandbox, which I guess will make him the all-time pitcher when the two comic book juggernauts play their annual softball game. Peacemaker led the way in The Suicide Squad to such violently hectic delight that the spin-off show might have been an even bigger streaming hit than the movie. And Gunn has made it clear that we can have memorable characters like Pete Davidson's Blackguard that don't necessarily need a lot of screen time to make an impression. But if Eagly ever gets off, we might have to jumpstart a change.org petition.
Why is your pet's name so unoriginal?
Why are you my least favorite kid in this class?
Bill, Grant, Starla, Jack, and Folk continue to make Slither a sneakily rewatchable classic, and Supers, Frank and Libby, make for a tremendous amount of unhinged chaos. But when we look at smaller properties that helped a filmmaker show what they could do, Taika Waititi might have set the high bar. What We Do in the Shadows, in both the film and TV versions, takes such a genius conceit and lets the laughs echo throughout the entire castle. Vlad, Biago, Deacon, Stu, and company establish a template that can welcome fresh new blood and stories for centuries to come, and if we need any more reminders of how great the TV show is, I just got one name for you.
Daytona. Jackie Daytona.
He might not be a master of disguise, but he at least knows what Updog is. If you don't, just ask.
Updog? If I didn't know what Updog was, I would at least ask me.
From undead hoots to wilderpeople hollers, we arrive at Thor Ragnarok, a film that soared in large part thanks to the sense of humor provided by the genius of Waititi. Like Gunn and Guardians, Thor, Valkyrie, Hulk, and the rest of the MCU gang weren't necessarily the brainchild of Taika, but he did what no one else on Asgard could have accomplished with those chess pieces on the board. Ragnarok is the Norse term for apocalypse, and he still made it fall down funny.
I'm just a huge fan of the sport.
And as he gets to welcome in the Guardians to his directing style, if this round was already too close to call, Jojo Rabbit might be the tiebreaker. You try taking the most reviled dictator of the 20th century, ever, and make them a lighthearted imaginary friend to a young boy trying to cope with World War II. Very few would have dreamt that up at all, and fewer would have been able to pull it off. Taika was the one, and that's just in addition to all the other lasting impressions his characters have had on us. It might have been the closest round yet, but Waititi takes the point, and now we're in a three-way. Tie for the lead. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Thank you for this. You have really made my day.
Round 4, iconic moments. So last round we talked about sandboxes and the characters that have these large areas of Anakin repellent with which to play in. But how much fun do we really get to have? I mean, tons. That's why these three directors are here, and that's why you sat down to watch this vid. I imagine you're seated. Are you standing? What are you doing standing watching this? Send me a pic of you standing watching this show and explain yourself. Starting with round 3 champion Taika Waititi, his WWDITS moments alone would make him a force to be reckoned with. Deacon's dancing is certainly a highlight, but what gets me most is the spin-off show that the cops have, Wellington Paranormal. It's just so good it makes you want to howl like a swearwolf.
Sorry,
We're werewolves.
Not
What are we?
werewolves, not swearwolves.
And even though I'm technically reading what I wrote from a teleprompter right now, I'd still vouch for the reading is stupid scene from Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
Only people who can't read say things like that.
That flick can be hilarious and moving within the same sequence.
You hungry? That's a silly question, isn't it? Look at you.
Edgar Wright knows how to make his underdogs lovable, and while I love the type of heightened gore and destruction we get to witness in Shaun of the Dead, the comedic timing in certain scenes is what separates that movie from the pack. The dogs can't look up line is so stupid, brilliant, ridiculous that it surprises me how hard I'm laughing every time. But then there's also super heart-wrenching sequences, like when you gotta take down your own mom. Ugh. That bar brawl is a nice precursor to the town fight in Hot Fuzz, and then we get treated to an awesome bathroom battle, something that our expert researcher Mark Hoffmeyer adores, in The World's End. And it's also in this film that we get some real emotional bandwidth out of Simon Pegg's character, Gary. The fight between Gary and Andy reveals a lot of hard truths and makes for a standout moment in a trilogy filled with them. But no one makes a violent take last quite like James Gunn, and usually it's at the expense of Michael Rooker. Slither is one long, creepy, gross scarefest, and so of course we start there with Rooker meeting his demise by blowing the F up. Then in Super, his head gets slammed. In the Gunn-written Belko experiment, the Rook has his noggin smashed. And in The Suicide Squad, we go back to our roots of blowing Michael's head into oblivion. At least in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the guy gets to relax and just breathe his last breath in relative peace. Guardians Volume 2 may have leaned a little too much on the laughs, but there was some real emotion behind it. Its predecessor flick marked the perfect blend of MCU action and wit, with James Gunn adding in his own flair. Drax, Rocket, and Groot are all scene stealers anytime they're on screen, but I'd also give major points to the gut-wrenching outpouring between Gamora and Nebula in Volume 2. While folks still hold out hope for a Baby Driver Volume 2, we still have all that breakneck action of the first to keep us company. The heist scenes are shot in such brilliant kinetic fashion that it lends more gravity to the romantic moments that we willingly hit the brakes for. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is another Wright classic that hits the opening sequence out of the stadium and sets us up on an adventure that we didn't know we wanted to take.
If your life had a face, I would punch it.
Yeah. Wait, what?
And the combo of live action and occasional video game aesthetic make the film as unique as it is beloved.
You are incorrigible.
I don't know the meaning of the word.
But pound for pound, I don't know that there's been a better combo of action, comedy, and unlikely alliances than what Taika Waititi gave us with Thor Ragnarok. Is there a scene in that movie that isn't memorable? Thor narrating us into how he got into a very tricky predicament through his blast into full-on Willy Wonka madness as we meet the Grand Master, and then one of the all-time best lines in a movie or trailer of the last decade.
He's a friend from work.
Plus, anytime we get to spend with Korg is memorable in my book. But once again, I might lean on Jojo Rabbit to be the difference. It's so damn tender and moving in a film that very easily could have missed the entire target and been a blemish on a resume. But in the capable, loving hands of Waititi, it's pure brilliance. And the emotion conjured out of a sequence like when the kid just needs a cuddle from his mom, that would even melt the hardened heart of Mark Ellis. See, I have feelings. And my feeling on this round is that Taika Waititi, who was scoreless after 2 rounds, is now scorching hot with another W here, and he takes the outright lead 2-1-1.
What?
And now it's time for the wildcard round, Rock and Roll Fantasy. It's a classic Bad Company tune, but you need not be in the genre of rock to pitch in with this deciding round. All 3 filmmakers rely on a diverse array of musical accompaniment to put a bow on one scene, drive another sequence, and flat out make or break an entire storyline. Music is that important to our talented triumvirate that it will be the deciding factor in which director takes home versus gold to display on their mantle right smack dab in the middle. If they ask, I will engrave them a trophy that may or may not be my old rec league basketball championship that I will hastily repurpose. Don't worry, I got 4 of those babies.
I too am extraordinarily humble.
It's an even playing field because none of our trio have used a Van Halen tune in their films, to my knowledge. Crime though that may be, I still like virtually every one of these movies. Take Guardians of the Galaxy. And now imagine it without that soundtrack. You can't fight this feeling, and you shouldn't. That's more than just a soundtrack. It's a vibe that lasts consistently throughout the first 2 volumes, and the download numbers indicate that the fans can't wait for more. Jay and the Americans make for a unique but indelible choice as a sprawling violent spree is happening in Volume 2, and that should have prepared us for what the show Peacemaker would provide. While Come a Little Bit Closer was a more mellow vibe, Do You Want to Taste It makes for an opening dance sequence that is absolutely, positively unskippable every time you watch Peacemaker. The rest of the show features a bunch of hair metal mainstays led by Y&T and Faster Pussycat, plus, I looked for it, there is briefly, very, very quickly, a Van Halen record on display, although that band isn't hair metal, and we can talk about that at a bar anytime you want. Speaking of bars, or pubs, The World's End has a host of killer tunes as well, and I love how fondly the group of friends look back on their time as die-hard fans of the Soup Dragons. Other divine things in the lineage of Edgar Wright fare would be pre-Captain Marvel Brie Larson in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World with Black Sheep, and I'll also give points to Wade in the Water from Last Night in Soho. But if it's an Edgar Wright joint, you're probably saving some room for Queen. Don't Stop Me Now is the perfect jukebox companion to the zombie carnage in Shaun of the Dead, and Brighton Rock is the tune that lets John Hamm's veteran criminal appreciate Baby Driver just a little more. Music is the gasoline that fuels Baby, and from the opening moments of us hearing bell bottoms, we know we're in for a ride that's going to be as loud as it is thrilling. Which leads us once again to Taika. Could he take 3 rounds in a row? Well, if Led Zeppelin has anything to say about it, quite possibly. The shredding guitar of Page and the howling vocals of Plant with Immigrant Song make for the perfect Norse mythology-approved entrance music for the God of Thunder in Thor Ragnarok. We also get treated to Bowie in Jojo Rabbit, and if you've never seen Boy, stay for the end credits, courtesy of Poi E. You will not be disappointed. And as great as the music in Waititi films is, and as perfectly casted as the tunes are in James Gunn works, for me it's Edgar Wright whose characters most speak the language of music. Baby Driver obviously leading the charge, but whether you're policing a small town, battling zombies, or simply enjoying a pub crawl, you don't just want the music there, you need it to speak for you, especially if beings from another world get mixed up in your little bar-walking evening. Edgar Wright gets the final point, and now he's tied with Taika Waititi at 2 apiece.
How dare you?
Which means now I have to make a ruling between the two on my own to crown a winner today. But I could probably also just break that tie and give a trophy to James Gunn. They're all so stupendously great regardless of the budgetary constraints their projects may have had. And as impressive as it was for Wright to make a non-franchise film into a massive hit like Baby Driver, I give the slightest of edges to Taika Waititi for being able to play in the universe of Marvel, please all of those many throngs of fans, and also stay true to his independent core and offbeat sense of humor. Taika is my winner today, and his trophy is on its way to Korg's office.
Piss off, Ghost!
Of course, all 3 filmmakers are winners in my book, and I can't wait to see what's next from each of them. And this is all just my 2 cents.
It's pointless arguing with him.
Now it's your turn, possibly weird viewer who's standing up watching this vid. Give me your take and let me know who your winner would be on the World Wide Web. I'm on social media at Mark Ellis Live, and stay tuned to Rotten Tomatoes for all the latest in the realm of movies, TV, and more. Thanks for watching Versus. I'm Mark Ellis, and you can call me your friend from work. But I won't turn green, just a little salmon in the cheeks occasionally.